You ask your smart speaker to set a simple 5-minute timer for a boiling egg, and it confidently tells you the population of Nebraska. 2 years ago, that was the standard digital assistant experience across the entire tech industry. Now, in 2026, this exact same underlying silicon is promising to manage your friendships, your finances, your dietary choices, and your professional correspondence without burning the house down.
Apple just wrapped up its WWDC 2026 keynote and finally performed a total brain transplant on its oldest assistant, rebranding the entire architecture as Siri AI.
Our mission for this deep dive is mapping out this newly unveiled system. It is powered by Apple Intelligence and heavily reliant on Google Gemini. We need to determine if it actually fixes the daily frictions of your life or just invents entirely new social anxieties for you to navigate. We are looking at a fundamentally different operating system layer designed to orchestrate actions across your entire digital footprint, constantly reading your screen and anticipating your physical movements.
Reprogramming an archaic voice assistant into a ubiquitous operating system orchestrator requires a massive architectural shift. For over a decade, Siri was essentially a rigid command center waiting for hyper-specific keywords to trigger basic macros.
Like Apple introduced Apple Foundation models built in part alongside Google Gemini, injecting this digital entity with broad world knowledge, personal context understanding, natural conversational abilities, and real-time on-screen awareness. Visually, the assistant no longer takes over your whole display and locks you out of your current application.
Siri AI lives up in the dynamic island on the iPhone. You swipe down, and it pops down as a glowing bar to answer queries in a continuous back-and-forth dialogue while you keep scrolling.
Shoving a massive multi-billion parameter language model into a digital assistant feels a lot like putting a supercomputer inside a household toaster. Giving an AI this much raw computational processing capability might not actually make it better at basic daily utility. The sheer weight of those data models might just make the software more prone to confidently lying to you about the weather.
Replacing the underlying architecture means Siri stops searching the web for generic links and starts synthesizing data directly from your local hard drive. Mike Rockwell, Apple's VP of Siri engineering, demonstrated how this completely alters the foundational retrieval mechanism on the device.
Wait, how does that actually play out in real time?
A user talking to Siri AI about Boston Chapultepec on an iPhone 17 Pro does not receive a scraped Wikipedia summary read aloud in a robotic voice. The system pulls data from Apple Maps to build a custom walking tour, grabs business hours from a local database, and actively parses your calendar to figure out if you even have the free time to visit.
Okay, generating a cohesive itinerary from local apps sounds functionally useful on paper. Relying on an external large language model introduces massive latency into a process that used to take milliseconds. Sending every single daily request to a massive data center requires the phone to compress the prompt, ping a remote server, wait for the AI generation, and decode the response back to text.
Apple bypassed the latency bottleneck by heavily optimizing these foundation models for edge computing. A localized, highly compressed version of the AI lives directly on the processor of the iPhone or Mac. The system orchestrator intercepts your prompt and routes it based on the computational weight.
The phone effectively acts as a traffic cop for your data.
Intercepting the command locally allows the chip to mathematically calculate if it needs backup before ever turning on the Wi-Fi radio. Basic questions about scheduling or local app data stay entirely on the silicon in your pocket. Heavy computational queries requiring broad world knowledge get handed off silently to the much larger Google Gemini models running in remote data centers.
Like the keynote presentation highlighting the Messages app, suggesting a pet name based on past text conversations. A cloud server does not need to analyze your group chats to suggest a dog name.
The localized AI parameters handle that text synthesis entirely on device, drastically reducing the response time to milliseconds. Partnering directly with Google to fortify these new models signals a massive admission that building a standalone omniscient cloud brain from scratch was too monumental a task, even for a $3 trillion company.
Reading the coverage from Stan Schroeder over at Mashable highlights a glaring historical reality. Siri represented the absolute edge of consumer technology back in 2011. Once ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude entered the public consciousness over the last few years, Apple's voice assistant suddenly felt like an antique.
Training a foundational language model demands astronomical capital expenditure, specialized server farms, and years of relentless data ingestion. Apple chose to optimize the hardware integration instead of fighting a losing battle in the server racks.
They focused on building specialized, smaller AI variants tuned specifically for speech recognition, text synthesis, image generation, and video generation.
The operating system handles specific human tasks with highly specialized models rather than throwing every single mundane query at one monolithic cloud brain.
Moving from the theoretical backend processing to how this software actually perceives your digital environment brings us to on-screen awareness. Siri AI can now actively read what is rendering on your screen and cross-reference that information with years of archived data hidden in your phone's memory.
The Apple presentation featured a user receiving a text message from a friend about an upcoming neighborhood potluck. Siri passively reads that incoming text, recognizes the context of a food gathering, and automatically pins a relevant recipe directly into the Notes app without the user ever opening a browser.
Wow, it also surfaces specific photos from a past trip just because someone in the group chat casually mentioned the city. A user receives a message asking for a dinner recommendation from months ago, and the software instantly digs up a hotel confirmation number from a buried email just to verify the neighborhood.
Apple integrated this active monitoring directly into Spotlight on the Mac and iPad. The interface actively juggles multitasking on the iPad with Photos and Safari open simultaneously, constantly reading both applications to find hidden connections.
This introduces a severe, creepy coworker dynamic to our personal electronics. Engineers call this ambient data parsing semantic indexing. The actual micro-feeling is like having someone constantly reading over your shoulder only to randomly bring up a text message you sent 3 months ago while you are just trying to check your calendar.
Utilizing private cloud compute guarantees your personal data is never stored or made accessible to Apple. The system relies entirely on encrypted, localized processing to handle these deeply personal requests. Apple engineered an entirely new server architecture built on custom Apple silicon, where independent cybersecurity experts can verify this exact privacy promise at the hardware level at any time.
Keeping the data processing locked down locally mitigates the risk of a massive server breach. The capability still feels highly intrusive. The assistant watches your screen, parses your private texts in real time, and constantly tries to anticipate your next physical action before you even touch the glass.
Mapping the meaning of your documents into mathematical vectors fundamentally changes how a computer understands your file system. Traditional search requires exact keyword matches. Semantic search understands concepts.
Like, you ask Siri to find the receipt for the blue headphones you bought last year. The AI understands the concept of a retail purchase, identifies the color blue, recognizes the specific category of audio equipment, and pulls the exact PDF from your downloads folder, even if the file is just named with a string of random numbers.
A demonstration on macOS showed Siri helping a user build a backyard shed. The software returned a selection of structural advice from the internet while simultaneously pulling up personal blueprints hidden away on the hard drive.
The program instantly generated a formatted text document titled Olives al Fresco directly on the MacBook screen based on a few scattered notes the user had jotted down days prior.
Contextualizing answers based on immediate geographical and temporal data streams pushes the capability further. You ask when and where to see the next solar eclipse, or when a specific musician is coming to town. The localized AI queries your current GPS location and actively cross-references your work calendar to ensure you actually have the free time to attend the concert before ever suggesting a ticket purchase.
Once Siri understands the digital text rendering on your screen, giving it literal eyes to interpret the physical world outside the phone represents a massive behavioral shift. Apple introduced a dedicated Siri mode inside the camera app. This multimodal capability allows you to point your phone at physical objects to trigger complex digital actions.
Amanda Silberling at TechCrunch highlighted a deeply specific scenario from the keynote. A user points the camera at a crumpled dinner receipt sitting on a restaurant table. Siri reads the paper using advanced optical character recognition, makes each individual printed item selectable on the phone screen, and instantly sends separate Apple Cash requests to friends based entirely on what they actually ordered.
Bringing massive multimodal visual intelligence down to the hyper-specific everyday micro-agony of going to a group dinner, choosing not to drink, and still being forced to subsidize a friend's 4 espresso martinis is a fascinating prioritization of engineering resources.
Apple Vice President of Software Sebastian Marinomez specifically demoed this bill-splitting tab feature on stage. We see 4 major functions utilizing this direct camera integration: getting nutritional insights from a physical plate of food, placing a 3D translucent Siri avatar in your living room via Vision Pro, searching visually for objects on a Mac display, and sending those separate Apple Cash requests directly from a printed receipt.
Aggressively pulling out a camera to scan a bill via Siri might drastically reduce the time spent doing mental math. Pushing a glowing phone in everyone's face to scan the itemized taxes might just make you look painfully stingy in front of your friends.
Connecting Apple Payment Services directly with the native iMessage architecture eliminates the need for clunky third-party apps like Splitwise. Standalone bill-splitting applications never gained universal mass adoption because forcing a group of adults to download a new utility at a restaurant creates immediate social friction.
Bypassing the App Store download hurdle fundamentally changes user behavior.
Pushing the payment request as a native bubble into a messaging protocol your friends already use daily removes the friction. Apple Cash services rely on Green Dot Bank infrastructure integrated directly into the operating system at the kernel level.
The AI scans a physical receipt, maps the printed text to specific contacts in your phone book using facial recognition or past chat history, and initiates the encrypted transaction simultaneously.
The camera integration extends significantly beyond the iPhone. Visual intelligence arrives natively on the iPad and Mac operating systems. Users select physical objects on their Mac display using a dedicated keyboard shortcut and type directly to Siri to initiate an internet search based on the image content.
The iPad incorporates this active visual scanning directly into the screenshot experience. Taking a picture of your screen now prompts the AI to offer immediate actions based on the captured pixels.
The Vision Pro implementation pushes this spatial computing concept further. You ask Siri about physical objects in your immediate surroundings just by looking at them. The outward-facing cameras constantly parse the room geometry.
The Mashable coverage details the visual representation on Vision OS, describing Siri as a floating translucent ball. You invoke the digital entity by making direct eye contact with the orb and speaking. Staring down a digital orb to pay for dinner is a wild evolution of human social dynamics. If Siri manages our financial transactions and social etiquette at a crowded restaurant, that behavioral shift bleeds heavily into how we communicate with those exact same friends and colleagues after we go home.
Siri AI writes entire drafts from scratch based on a few scattered text prompts. The system automatically adjusts your written tone based entirely on the specific recipient. We are aggressively entering the Write Everywhere era. Apple announced deeply integrated writing tools alongside a dedicated Siri application utilizing iCloud to privately sync conversational history across your iPhone, your iPad, your Mac, and your Vision Pro.
A user commands the software to change an emotional email into short bullet points because the AI recognizes that is how they normally correspond with their manager.
The software automatically proofreads keystrokes in real time across almost every third-party application on the device. The operating system monitors the grammar, suggests structural rewrites, and handles the formatting protocols while you type in Word, Pages, or an external email client.
The philosophical endpoint of this feature demands serious scrutiny. Your personalized Siri AI drafts an email mimicking your specific communication style. Your manager receives that email, and their personalized Siri AI immediately scans it and summarizes it back to them in a completely different tone. Are human beings actually communicating with each other anymore, or are we just watching two distinct algorithms play a silent game of ping pong using heavily formatted corporate buzzwords?
Categorizing human language as a tedious administrative task to be optimized completely changes the interaction model. The Mashable piece observes the system starting a specific task on one device, like an iPhone, and finishing it on a separate machine, like a MacBook, completely lacking human intervention.
Categorizing personal communication as data transfer removes the friction of daily correspondence. It also strips out the humanity.
Eliminating the mechanical burden of drafting is the goal. Apple treats certain types of workplace communication as raw information exchange rather than creative personal expression.
Generating bullet points saves significant time when the only goal is conveying a project status to a supervisor. The AI manages the formatting protocols. The human handles the factual input.
The dedicated Siri app aggregates these rich, multi-device conversations in one secure location. You dictate a complex thought to Siri on your Mac and finalize the textual output later on your Apple Watch.
The deep integration with the Apple Watch establishes an entirely new level of digital omnipresence. Initiating a complex workflow directly from a wristable device used to be agonizingly slow.
A new Smart Stack suggestion automatically materializes on the watch face to help a user continue a recent conversation without ever opening a dedicated app. The press release details a massive boost in accuracy regarding system-wide dictation models.
The software captures spoken audio as heavily polished text, automatically handling the capitalization and formatting on the fly using advanced transformer models.
Users customize the expressiveness, the pitch, and the pace of the synthesized voice. The localized Apple Foundation models drive the natural back-and-forth conversation with practically zero latency. Relying on stilted robotic voice commands is a relic of the past decade.
The technical evolution from a novel 2011 voice assistant to a ubiquitous 2026 operating system orchestrator represents a staggering behavioral shift in consumer technology. Siri stopped functioning as a separate application you open specifically to ask a trivia question.
The software now operates as a foundational underlying layer of the machine itself, constantly watching your screen, reading your texts, analyzing your receipts, and anticipating your next physical action. Deploying Apple Intelligence across an ecosystem this vast requires extremely specific hardware architecture.
Consumer devices like the iPhone 16 models, the new iPhone 17 Pro, the iPhone Air, and M1 Max possess the dedicated neural engines required to support these models natively.
Apple stated the software faces immediate delays in the European Union and China due to massive regulatory requirements regarding data privacy and security paths. The initial rollout supports English exclusively, with rapid global expansion planned for languages including Danish, Dutch, French, and German.
We launched this deep dive mocking a smart speaker hopelessly struggling with a basic boiling egg timer. We ended examining a hyper-aware digital orchestrator deeply embedded in the most intimate corners of our daily routines. If Apple Intelligence successfully transforms our devices into omniscient personal assistants that know our emails, our photographic archives, our scheduling conflicts, and our group chat dynamics significantly better than we do, what happens to human memory? Do we slowly lose our biological ability to recall the specific details of our own lives because we know a piece of silicon resting in our pocket is constantly doing the remembering for us? It is something to mull over the next time you ask a floating translucent orb about your own weekend plans. Goodbye.